Hey everybody, it's Gary, Main Brew Guy. Matt and I did a really cool recipe. We called it South by Southeast. It's a New Zealand Pilsner where we just used all New Zealand hops, and we did a little bit of lime zesting. I did 3/4 of a lime in mine, and he did a half of a lime, standard size lime. I think mine was a little much, but it does something that does fade over time. So in a Pilsner, I feel like it's wasted, because early in the Pilsner, it's almost overpowering, but then almost near the end of the keg, where you're getting close to finishing the Pilsner off, it's perfect. And then if you bottle or can some and let them sit for a couple of months, it's virtually non-existent. And I think Matt had the same outcome. I'm gonna pour Matt's first. We had to share recipe ingredients because when we did the collab, neither one of us had everything we needed. And it was during the pandemic and everything was shut down. So we decided to send each other the items. I had some of the grains he was missing, and he had the yeast, which was 830 or 833. And for fear of oxidation, I always overfill my cans. So those of you who get my cans, except for the malt experiment, that was a fluke. They'll typically be filled to the top and make a little bit of a mess. Apologies in advance. So there was a little crud that fell in there, but it's stark how similar these two beers are. I feel like they were made and canned from the same batch. It's crazy. The heads on them are fairly similar. I think Matt's is sticking around a little more than mine, but mine seems to be more carbonated than his. Like I said, I did put a little more lime zest in mine than he did, so the oils from the lime zest could be breaking up the head a little. Okay, so let's go with the aroma. Yeah, I'm getting a nice lemon lime kind of quality there. Pilsner malt, you know, the Pilsner grain, that smell you get when you pick up a Stella. Very clean, but a nice refreshing kind of like, yeah, I guess a light lemony, fruity, maybe even a little lime. Okay, on mine I get way more lime. So that's interesting that the lime hung around on the aroma. So the lime on mine almost appears to the point of a little bit of soapiness, but it's got a spiciness too. That's weird. It's just a hint of spiciness, and but like not overpowering, but a predominant pleasant lime presence. Okay, let's go ahead and get a taste on Matt's. Identical color and clarity for sure. So not as crisp as I would expect a Pilsner to be. It's got a nice smooth mouthfeel. It's a great beer. It's just that when I smell a Pilsner, I expect that crisp bite almost that carbonic crisp bite of a Pilsner. This is more smooth. Not sweet. Yeah, maybe a little sweet. And maybe a little sweet, but clean, no off flavors. I do get a hint of lime on the taste. So let's go back on mine. Yeah, that lime is there for sure. All right, let's get a taste. I definitely get the lime on mine on the flavor too, which is interesting because when I got near the end of the keg, I couldn't pick up any more lime anymore. However, I was crushing on that pretty fast, so I may have gotten used to the lime, and since I've been removed from it a little bit, I think I'm picking up on it. Because I held off on this can, it was the last can I had so that I could do a review with Matt. It was it's an extremely good beer. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna go back to yours there, Matt. So there's two slight differences of these two beers. This one has that more smooth mouthfeel, a little more viscous and sweet. And this one, mine, it's a little less sweet, a little more crisp, but still smooth. And there's definitely a pleasant lime presence there. That's interesting. You went a half and I went 3/4. We're talking about a quarter of a lime zest, which is probably, I have ghosts, no, condensation's floating. That is kind of cool though, isn't it? Again, let's get those in the shot there. Where mine is a little more carbonated than Matt's, which I think does help with the crispness. Matt's is definitely carbonated, and it's holding a little more of a head around the edge. It does make sense because the beer does taste a little sweeter. I think we finished the same. So getting back to the slight differences on how we brewed it. We brewed it identical, like down to the pH in the mash, down to the final pH. We used the same yeast. In fact, he made a starter and sent me in a vial his yeast. So, I mean, it is exactly the same yeast. All right, so there are slight differences in the way we ferment it, however. Matt used the fast ferment technique, and I used the traditional fermenting technique. So he fermented at 55 until his specific gravity got to about half of the terminal gravity. And then he started ramping up, and I think he ramped immediately to 60, however long it took it, you know, the beer, maybe 24 hours to get to 60. And then he finished out at 60. I remained at 55 the entire time. I don't know if that's the difference. The only other slight difference for me is that I ferment a little bit under pressure, even when I'm not doing a full pressure fermentation, like maybe 0.5 or you know, maybe just under 0.5 bar. I just like that little bit of pressure on there. I don't know if that had anything to do with it either. But that's the only thing I can come up with on the differences, because we use the same exact water profile. And I take that back. I used RO water, but I built up to Matt's profile, and I think he may have diluted so that we could get to a Pilsner profile. Well done, Matt. Very close. The lime is definitely more predominant in this one. I'll definitely repeat the recipe. I may do what Matt does, because go to a half a lime because of the how quickly we go through that, you know, the keg goes fairly quickly. Also, I think I may grind a few bits of coriander in the next time. I mean, we're not talking ounces, we're talking like maybe 1/4 of an ounce or less, even a 1/16 of an ounce. I'm gonna grind coriander. You gotta remember, in Pilsners, there's not a lot to hide behind, so anything you put in kind of shines through really fast. I will say that 3/4 of the lime zest for 3/4 of the keg was overpowering, and I was a little disappointed, which mine, I was ahead of Matt a little bit because he had a keg issue, so he couldn't get his beer into a keg in time. I was drinking mine well before Matt was, and I told him, hey man, you might want to back off on the lime because I think I ruined mine. Now it's perfect, but now we're talking about 6 months later. And I believe Matt and I both do pressure transfers to keg for oxidation reduction. So there's no oxidation even 6 months later. It's super clean. So I'm very, very, very impressed with that. I think maybe just a slight bump in the bittering charge might be appropriate. I mean slight. And I think that would kind of round out the back a little. Now we did dry hop with Machuika, I believe. Or Machuika, potato. Somebody can correct me in the comments, I'm sure. That was our dry hop, I believe. We could probably bump that as well. But like I said, maybe do what Matt did. It's go to a half a lime, because he said early on it was perfect. And then crush a little coriander for the long haul. And I think that would just round this beer off and make it like you could go enter a contest and probably pull first place. So the only thing I have to go on is that it's either that I started out with RO water, or that it's the traditional fermentation, slight pressure fermentation that gave it a little more crispness. But heck, I wouldn't even be opposed to adding a little AMD to this recipe and get that gravity down even more. Now, there's a few things to try, but as it is, I've entered Pilsners in competitions and won first place, third place, second place. This is definitely a first place kind of beer. Anyway, that's all I have. I'm rambling, and these beers are amazing on a hot day. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for doing this, and look ahead to our Oktoberfest collab. That proves to be pretty interesting as well. Cheers.